Hi guys, my name's Mark. I'm a compulsive overeater. Thank you for everybody being here and thank you everyone for their service. I'm extremely nervous, so I'm just going to say a set aside prayer, to God, please help me set aside everything I think I know for an open mind and new experience. Please help me see the truth and and remove my fear. You all remembered, amen. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what life was like before, what it was like during, and what it's like now, and then just focusing on the gratitude of that as well. So I was born into a young toxic relationship, and my real father never wanted me, and he wanted to have me aborted and put me up for adoption, but my mum said no. And my real father wasn't a nice man. He got arrested on the day of their wedding for armed robbery, and he just used a tool to hurt my mum. Used me as a tool to hurt my mum, and he was a violent man. He used to beat me and my mum and spend the little money we did have on alcohol and drugs, and he would leave us with nothing. He went to the courts to get custody, and he was awarded. He wasn't awarded it, thank God. So he decided to kidnap me and keep me away from my mum. I'm so grateful that my mum fought for me back then. My mum was left a single parent, and she was a survivor of domestic abuse, sexual abuse, and just had a stream of unworthy boyfriends who treated her badly. So I grew up on the breadline, never knowing where my next meal was coming from at times. So I'd make best friends with the dinner ladies at school, and I'd get seconds and thirds, and I'd eat as quick as I can and as fast as I can to get as much as I possibly could. And I went to many different schools because my mum had itchy feet and we had to move every couple of years. And so I made best friends with every single dinner lady at school. And, I was the only child left. My mum lost two children. And there was an immense amount of pressure on me to be the good kid. And my mum would say, if Charlie or RJ was alive, they'd have done it for their mum. So, I always remember turning to food and becoming my best friend, and it was my comfort. And I'd get a sanctuary most weekends when I go to my nan's, because my nan, who had a faith actually, she would always, give me everything I wanted, and looked after me, give me proper meals, and she bailed us out countless times getting us shopping when we had no money. And I'd eat my nan out of house, of home, and I'd hate going home on a Sunday night. And I had a lot of trauma and unstable home life for so long. And I remember that, I couldn't even sleep at night without white noise. And then when I was about 9, I got sexually abused by a man for a few years, and even the promise of food kept me quiet. He used to, whilst he was doing the act, he used to promise that I'd go to his house one day and I could get any food I wanted, and and he'd buy me whatever he wanted, and I used to daydream over that, and that kept me quiet for a few years, to be honest. I had a breakdown as a kid, and I had years of childhood therapy to get me through that, and to be able to talk openly and honest about that. So I soothed with food as much as I possibly can. I was broken and I missed out on a lot of school, and I wasn't able to attend, going through the courts and stuff. But the reason I mention all of that is, so you can recover. Whatever you've been through, whatever your story is, you can recover. And the working the steps, one of the miracle things has been for me, there's no shame around that anymore. It says that it's our weaknesses, not our strengths, that bind us together. And I can eat over anything, or because I've been abused, or because it's Tuesday, and I push that above and beyond. Was always the fat kid. Fast forward, through my teens and stuff, I become a qualified chef, and that gave my disease a free reign and access to a lot of food. And I'd manipulate, and I become best friends with the kitchen teams at all the places I worked at. And then, I'd steal food. I've eaten food out of the bin. I've eaten stale food, burnt food, you name it. I've eaten food off the floor. And I've gone to any lengths to get food. I remember as a kid sitting on packs of frozen ham, because the chest freezer used to be in my mum's bedroom. I used to go and sit on them and watch Toy Story and then get a really bad tummy and wonder why. And I'd eat so fast that I could get whoever's food I was eating with. So I could get some of my nan's food, or, whoever I was eating with. And I blocked out a lot of my childhood memories. And, you know, it did take me a long time to be able to talk openly about, you know, my struggles and stuff. But the few things I can remember from my childhood all involve food. So I'm really grateful today for the food, because it did get me through a lot, you know, and it got me through some tough times, and it worked for a while in my life. Um, and in my late teens, you know, I discovered drugs and alcohol and cigarettes, and I used and abused them for years. I used to worship money and work crazy hours. And, you know, I was waiting tables as I earned a lot more money, and I put myself into so many dangerous situations. You know, there's definitely a power that's kept me safe through my life. Um, you know, a lot of people have lost their lives from a lot less of what I've done. And in 2014, my life was so unmanageable. You know, I had all of the trauma that I'd mentioned, and I was a carer for my mum from the age of 9. So there was a lot of emotional stuff there, and I tried to take my life a few times and take overdoses when I was younger. And, you know, I'd been working in TGI Fridays for probably about 10 years at this time, and I hated my job. The food didn't work anymore. So I did what the big book tells us, you know, that geographical cure, and I moved to Spain to become holiday rep. And whilst I was in Spain, you know, I drank 48 cans of Red Bull and become very manically ill, and was put into a Spanish asylum type hospital. You know, I'd lost my passport, my phone, I'd lost my entire identity, and I was talking so fast that I couldn't even talk audible. You know, I now know that my higher power was with me then. Me driving around the island, manic, thinking that I own the island, and then beaten by the police and put into a Spanish asylum type hospital, being, you know, cuffed to beds and stuff, and heavily sedated. No one talking English, and I didn't talk Spanish. You know, there was someone looking after me then. That was my higher power. So, you know, I finally, after a good few months, I finally got back to the UK on an emergency passport. And I was grateful for the company that I worked with, because they still kept me employed even though I'd quit officially. And I was put into a hospital here, and it was like a palace compared to what it was in Spain. And I got diagnosed with bipolar in 2015, and I'd always been a chubby kid, always been quite a chubby adult. But, you know, working in the catering industry, I was running around all the time, so I burnt off quite a few calories. But in 2015, I hit my worst time of my life, and I, you know, didn't laugh for a year, and I put on 10 stone in that year. You know, I went up to 28 stone 12, and my life was really unmanageable. I would eat and eat and eat, but nothing would soothe me. You know, the blood blisters, the chub rub, the breathlessness, the fat smell. You know, it hurt to roll over in bed. I had to sit down to pee. I couldn't wash myself properly. You know, my big gut would hang over my t-shirt if my mum could convince me to go out. And I was just in hell, you know, and I just couldn't get that same effect from the food that it once did. And I tried everything, you know, I tried gyms, diets, pills, potions, weight loss books. I tried not drinking alcohol. You know, nothing worked. And then I did find a diet club, and I lost 12 stone, but then gained it all back again. And I, you know, I'd first ever heard about OA in 2017. And, you know, I come to one meeting, heard the word God, and I was like, no, that's not for me. I'm not gonna join them. I think they're a cult or whatever. So I didn't come back until 2020, and I'm so grateful for COVID, because for me, you know, that gave me the opportunity to come to as many Zoom meetings as I possibly could, and you know, it really opened the door for me. And I found a sponsor. My first sponsor took me 7 months to get through steps 1, 2, and 3. I don't recommend that for me. You know, I had to get through the steps quicker than 7 months, but you know, it just didn't work for me, and I kept relapsing. And I've had a few different sponsors, and there's many different ways up the mountain, but the view from the top's all the same. And I think that's because we all learn and develop differently. You know, I've worked the steps fully 3 times now, and I've had 3 major relapses. And I had a lurking notion in my relapse before, like the last one, before I come back into program this time, that maybe these new weight loss drugs could work. Maybe these injections would work. Sorry, I'm getting dry now. Thank you, darling. Yeah, maybe these injections could work. It's working for everybody else. Maybe that will just work for me. Maybe that'll be the solution, you know. And that lurking notion that was 2%, no, I'm fully ready. There's no other solution for me. There's only two doors, because I have to be willing to work the steps with the desperation of a drowning man, and my life does depend on it. So I was taking these dodgy injections I got from a friend on Facebook, had no idea what was in the vial that I was injecting myself with. And I felt horrendous, absolutely horrendous. And, that just wasn't working for me. And I ate myself into diabetes, but I still just couldn't stop eating. I went up to 32 stone 9, which is 464 pounds. And can we show the pictures now, if that's all right, please? The first two, if that's all right, the two biggest ones. I can't remember who's sharing them. And the big book tells us that our disease gets progressively worse and never better. So I come in at 28 stone 12. This is me at my biggest at 32 stone 9. And I had a really bad Pepsi Max addiction as well. So I don't know if you'd like to mention things this one, but I was drinking, 7 or 8 liters a day, and then I moved from bottles to cans. This was my 28 stone 12 moment when I was really poorly, not long come back from Spain. And I thought I'd never, ever get bigger than that. No, I'll never get bigger than 28 stone 12, but actually my disease is progressive and fatal. And I did go up to 32 stone, and I have to be under no delusion that I will be 600 pounds and someone will be wiping my bed sores, and I'm a real compulsive overeater. And I do have to work this program, The Desperation of a Drowning Man. And I'm grateful to this program today. It saved my life. I was almost bedbound pretty much, and my life was already hell. What have I got to lose? You can stop showing them now. Thank you, my darling. There is only two doors. Either I work this recovery, like my life depends on it, because it does, or I die, the death of 1,000 cuts. And why did I relapse? Because I stopped working the program, I become cocky. I stopped using the tools, stopped going to meetings, stopped doing outreach, and it all just come gradually. The food's always there. And I had to really create a hospital to home. What the big book talks about, I had to, use all the tools, go to meetings, do all of the suggestions, and sometimes it just felt too much to do it just for a day. So, I would just do it just for this moment, just for this hour. Oh my God, the fear's coming in. Hold on. My nan always says if you get really fearful, Mark, it's because you care. So for me, I had to, not go to the grocery store. I used to get my groceries delivered. For me, it was 3 meals a day, making sure I got enough sleep, not watching too much TV, and it's just really, really painful in the beginning, but it does work. Like if you can just keep coming back, it does work. And every time I relapsed, every time I struggled, the one line in program that kept me coming back is a life beyond my wildest dreams, because I wanted that so badly. And, it is a we program, not an I program, because I can't do this alone, and, the whole point of doing the outreach is to create a God squad, so that I've got fellows to call on, in those times that I need to. And I've got friends all over the world today, and I just want to touch on step 4 a little bit. So, because when I first come into program, step 4 and 9 was my most feared steps. And, I was so afraid to do step 4, but it's actually one of the most powerful steps for me. I enjoyed doing the first 3 columns because that's about who I'm resentful at, why I'm resentful in 19 words or less, Mark. I can write 5 essays on that if you want me to. No, that's not the point. Okay. And then I'm ticking, how it affects me on the form that I did it, working the big book. And then how, where's my part in all of it? And that's the part I didn't like. That made me feel uncomfortable. I don't want to look at this. I want to see what you've got wrong with you, because that makes me feel better to put you down, and actually the common denominator in all of those problems was me, and I'm powerless over people, places and things, so it doesn't matter why they did what they did to me, I'm not doing their inventory. And this, I just had to really get through step 4, because it's like sitting in a dirty nappy. You don't want to sit in it for too long, just keep showing up and taking the action. And I had to really ramp up my recovery around that, saying the resentment prayer multiple times a day for some people, God, please show me the same tolerance, pity and patience I would cheerfully grant a sick friend. These people are spiritually sick, God, please stop me from being angry. Thy will be done, not mine. How can I be helpful to this person? And I just say it over and over again. And the steps are in order for a reason. So if I'm on step 1, there's no point panicking about step 4 right now. Let me just focus on this, on the part that I'm on. Just the next right action. I can spiral into a massive panic attack about anything. Then step 9 is where the magic happens for me. It's one of the most scariest steps people think, and that's definitely where the magic happened for me, making amends. I was so shocked by most of the amends that I made that people never see or thought about me the way that I thought I did, or how I'd wronged them. But not everybody accepted my amends, and that's okay. And I'm grateful to know that today. I'm grateful for my sponsor. I can't work this program on my own, because it's not up to me if they accept the amends. As long as I've checked my amends with my sponsor, because I've got no right to hurt others, then I know I've done my part and I've made my amends. And if they don't accept it, then that's not up to me. It's up to God. I've cleaned my side of the street. And it took some willingness to make some amends. I had to pray a lot to make a genuine amends to some of those people. And I continue to live in steps 10, 11, and 12 today. And I do step 10s as and when they come up for me, because, and I share them with my sponsor. I do them via the app. They said the only way to do step 10 wrong is to not do it, because for me, resentment is the luxury of a normal man. For me, resentments are what kill me. That's what I eat over, the insanity that I am. It's like I'm drinking the poison, expecting the other person to die. What is my higher power? I don't actually know what my higher power is. I've spent a lot of time in recovery trying to figure out what that is, trying to define it, trying to put a color to it. It could be a bit of whatever, and I just realized, I need to know 2 things: that there is one and it's not me. And I've created a God advert in recovery, I've created, I want it to be loving, kind, empathetic, honest, all of those things, and your higher powers, all of those things and more, and there's certainly been a power looking after in my life. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for a higher power. And I'm so grateful for OA and my sponsor and my higher power today. They've saved my life, and I have got an attitude of gratitude today. It's turned my life around. You've got the 2 wolves. You've got the one wolf inside. They say that everyone's got the 2 wolves inside us. The one wolf is, the positive wolf, the kind, the caring, the considerate, loving, serenity, fill in the blank. And the negative wolf, which is the selfishness, the negative self-talk, the hate, the anger, the hurt, envy, all of that, and what wolf wins is the one that you feed inside. So if I focus on the good, what will come, and if it's the bad, the same thing. And there's a saying that I've heard before that I absolutely love. Every day may not be a good day, but there's good to be found in every day. There's always something to be grateful for. I've got a beautiful fellow in the US that checks me sometimes and says, Mark, these are first world problems. There's someone in the world somewhere wishing for the life I've got today. Some people don't know where the next glass of clean water is coming from, or rice is coming from. And gratitude didn't come really easily to me. I wasn't grateful I've got a freezer or I've got a bed. Like, everyone's got that. I was really like, what do you mean? Everyone's got a pen. Everyone's got a candle. And so I started off with just 3 things, and just that daily action, bit by bit, bit by bit. Today, I am really grateful for what I've got. God willing, on the 24th of this month, I'll have 16 months sober. And, I'm grateful for that today. And it's just one day at a time, one day at a time. I wake up every morning, a compulsive overeater. I need to take my daily actions over and over again, because I've got a disease that will forget and will tell me that I've not got a problem. And, I've got the only disease that says I haven't got a disease. If I've got diabetes, which I have, I accept that. But when it comes to food, that part of the brain that says, don't touch that hot stove, or, don't stroke that black cat because you're allergic. My brain will go, oh, just touch the ginger cat because that's not black. So you'll be all right this time. No, Mark, you're allergic to cats. You know, the same thing when it comes to food. Like, oh, you can just have one of those now. I cannot, you know, this disease will kill me. And the fantasy is always better than the reality. You know, it's just the delusion. The food never works anyway. You know, the food never solves it. If I've got 10 problems today, it's going to give me 11 tomorrow with the and an hangover. It's going to solve nothing.
Another 10 minutes, Mark.
Thank you, my darling. So yeah, I'm just, you know, I'm grateful for that today. And that's why I need my fellows, because I have that mental blank spot that it talks about in the big book. You know, I sometimes need someone to sign a mirror up with me, or, you know, message my sponsor or whatever, and just I need you to hold the mirror up and say, actually, this is your disease, Mark. I'm like, okay. You know, and my higher power today and you know, my sponsor and all of you have helped me put down my binge foods, alcohol, drugs, my Pepsi Max addiction, which was one of the hardest things I've ever had to kick. Closely followed by cigarettes, which is the next thing, you know. And I'm almost this July, I think I'll be 3 years cigarette free, you know. And I know that if I was to have one puff of a cigarette, I would be back on it like a carbonic. Like I'll talk with my neighbour in the garden, and she's like, "Oh, Mark, you just want to have a little drag?" I cannot. No thanks, babe. You know, if I take one, I'm back on it. I'll be back down the shop. And you know, it's this program that made me want a better life. Like I was like, I want more than this. I don't want to be lighting all my money on fire and wasting it with the cigarettes, you know. And I have to make an amends to everybody, every person that does not smoke, and you've got a smoker around you. Oh my God, they stink. I thought you was all dramatic and drama queens. No, you're not. I can smell it now. It stinks. If you get in an Uber and someone's been smoking, I'm like, oh, it reeks in here. I never smelt that. I thought it was all being drama queens. And then, you know, it's been a gradual process for me. I put down what was killing me first, which is my foods, my food behaviors. And the more I've been in recovery, the more that's been revealed, like the layers of the onion have peeled back, you know. So sweetener had to go. Social media is the first thing I've had to put down that's not a physical substance, but I've got that ism, you know. I've got that part in my brain that just wants more. You know, and I was just doomsday scrolling. I was having a cloudy, fluffy head, and I just was watching rubbish, and my brain cannot process all of this information that's useless to me most of the time. So I had to put that down in toxic relationships, and I've lost 125 pounds now. Can we put the other pictures up if that's all right? Yes, I've lost 125 pounds. You know, I'm not perfect. And when I'd relapsed, I'd gone up again. So I've lost probably about the weight of a person, and I've got another person to go. So yeah, this was Christmas just gone, and then there's another picture here with my beautiful friend Amy from the States, who I met in program, and I had the delightful summer that I spent with this year in the UK. I think it was on the way to the zoo there. It was fabulous. Yeah, and you know, I couldn't even leave my house before. Like I wouldn't even go outside the door. Like I hated my life. And I've got thank you, and I've got you can stop those now. I've got life beyond my wildest dreams today, and I have a freedom from food obsession, which is worth its weight in gold. 98% of the time, you know, sometimes I'll still get a food fault, which means I've got to take the action. You know, now I get up really early. Like most people at outreach with me know that I'm an early to bed person. If you message me past 9 o'clock, I'm probably not going to answer till the morning the next day. When people are like, oh, I stayed up till like, I know I had no night last night. I went to bed at 2. Oh, it's too late for me. Anyway, but that's changed because I used to be a night owl when I was in the food and stuff like that, and now I love the quiet of the morning. And that's worth its weight in gold to not have that constant food noise and have a life in between meals today. And my gosh, am I so much more productive than I ever was before. And you know, a life from my wildest dreams doesn't look like Channing Tatum naked in a shower like I thought it would, but it feels so much better. You know, I haven't got the £1 million mansion. I haven't got like I haven't got like the flashy cars and all of that. But you know, it is worth its weight in gold to look at the world in a different set of eyes today. Like to have real plants. I didn't care about plants before. You know, to look for the beauty in the world. Like the birds that, you know, that are tweeting in the morning before I'm like, shut up. Like you give me a headache. Now I'm not like that at all. I like it most of the time. And any day in recovery is better than any life day in the food, you know. And recovery is a gift. It is simple, but it is not easy. And you know, no one's no one's off limits for this disease. You know, the person that stays abstinent the most is the person that got up first this morning. You know, I'm just one bite away. I have to be under no delusion because, you know, I've got lazy and complacent and thought I've got this and I've lost my abstinence. You know, and being at peace and acceptance with my mum is one of the most powerful gifts I've had in recovery. The first time through the steps, I had some freedom from my mum, but I was really resentful towards her. There was a lot of history there, a lot of emotional torture. You know, my mum went through a lot as well. And, you know, thanks to this program, my mum passed in 2021, by the way. She was one of us, but she never found recovery. She was a compulsive overeater at 32 stone, went down to a strict time, and she got up at the age of 54 and died of a heart attack going to the toilet. And I cared for her from the age of 9, so we had a close bond, you know. And there was a lot of anger there, but to be able to see and feel in my heart that she did, this always makes me emotional, that she did the best she could with what she had, having been through what she'd been through. And I couldn't have done a better job, you know, to feel that in my heart, that acceptance and that peace, to be like, Mum, thank you for everything you did for me. I never appreciated you when you was here. And I got to make an amends to my mum in recovery. And then when she died, I got a relapse. I had to make another amends via a letter. And I like to think my mum's part of my higher power there today. But that's a miracle of the recovery. I was so angry and resentful to my mum. I moved to Spain because my mum was pissing me off so much, you know. But I couldn't have done a better job. I could not have done a better job than my mum. God bless her. You know, freedom, joy, peace, quiet, having that quiet head, laughter, love is things I'm all grateful for. I love to laugh. Like, I love rubbish jokes. I love anything that makes me laugh. And they say laughter is the sign of a good meeting. You know, if you can hear people laughing in the meeting, it's a good sign. And when I come to meetings and I see people laughing, I was offended. What are you laughing at? Is he serious? You know, how can you? But, you know, we're not a glum lot. And I just want to read, hopefully I've got time, I just want to read the acceptance reading on page 417 of the big book. You know, I read this daily and I have to read this as much as I can, you know. And it's, you know, the second paragraph down, it says, acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of my life unacceptable to me, and I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly the way it's supposed to be at this moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. Until I could accept my alcoholism, I could not stay sober. Unless I accept life completely on life's terms, I cannot be happy. I need to not concentrate so much on what needs to be changed in the world as what needs to be changed in me and in my attitudes. And I'm grateful for that. And I need that reminder daily. And, you know, just saying life on life's terms, the emotions coming. On the 2nd of this year, I had to say goodbye to my fur baby, Lucky. He's a pussycat. And
you've got two minutes, Mark.
Thank you, darling. And, you know, he passed away and he kept me, he was such a comfort to me. When my mum died and my nan died, I didn't want to say goodbye to him. But I was given that grace, and you know, I didn't eat over that. I know that food's not the answer. I just have to feel all the feels, feel those emotions. This too shall pass, not in the time that I want it to, but it will pass. You know, God will keep me safe. You know, and I've got through, and everyone here has got through absolutely every single thing you thought in your life you thought you couldn't. You know, and you're still here to tell that tale. You know, I'm so grateful for that. And you know, if you're struggling or if you're undecided, or does this really work? It does. It really does bloody work. I'm not lying to you. You know, I thought all these people were crazy. Just one day at a time, one foot in front of the other. You just need to keep coming back and, you know, not leave until the miracle happens. And I'm so grateful to have been asked to share this evening. I was extremely nervous. Yeah, and I do really love this program. You know, it's just a gift that keeps on giving. And they say that nothing's as good as abstinence feels, and just to have the clarity is just amazing today. And you know, I'm so grateful. And they say work it because you are worth it, and you are worth it. And if no one's told you stay, you're loved, you're worthy, you're enough, and God doesn't make junk. He doesn't make junk. So thank you for letting me share. I'll leave it there.
Wow, Mark, that was incredible. I don't even know what to say. It's just, you certainly embodied the topic. Attitude of gratitude, how amazing. Wonderful recovery, and well done. And thank you so much for all that honesty and that emotion today. We really needed that. Okay, so we will now open the Q&A segment for questions. So if you'd like to ask questions, as I said before, please post your questions into the chat function only, because this section is also recorded. Okay, so as the questions come through, I'll ask them in the order that they come through to me. Okay, so thank you, Mark, for every single word. Can you share about what are your daily non-negotiables?
That's a good question, thanks. My daily non-negotiables is my morning routine. Whether I want to do it or not, some mornings I don't want to do it and some mornings I do, but I always start off my day. I always feed the boys, the cats first, because they're very senior and they won't shut up until I feed them. So I feed them, make my coffee, and then I do my prayers. I read my prayers. I've got it in the written version, and I've pre-recorded my voice reading the prayers. So sometimes if I can't be bothered to read them, I'll just listen to them. The same thing, but WhatsApp, send it to myself, it works. Boom. So I do my prayers, my journaling. I always include a gratitude list, 10 or more things. And what do I do after that? Writing prayers, writing, journaling, and gratitude list. And then I share my daily readers. I read my daily readers, and I share one actually that's not away. And then I meditate, and I love. I can't say it's not a way, but I love a meditation app that you can use. I like guided and I like quiet. And I always outreach every day. I do my outreach every day, and I go to a meeting every day. There's a speaker that says, I go to a meeting every day because I have to eat every day. And if I can't go to a meeting every day, that's okay. I'll just try and do one the next day. But if I get to as many meetings as I can, and I just stay close to program and stay connected. I do my step 10s, just non-negotiable. Whether I want, even if I don't have time at that minute, I'll do it as soon as I can. And sticking to my food plan, I always submit my food the night before for the day, for the next day. And I just stay connected. My disease wants me alone. Alone wants me to isolate. So I stay connected with fellows. I have people that I outreach with daily. I have some people I outreach with for a couple of minutes, and some people I outreach with for 35 minutes. I need a notepad, and we backwards and forwards via voice note or whatever. Hopefully that helps. I can talk to you about anything for anything.
That's great. Thank you, Mark. Okay, next question. Can you ask about the relapses and your feelings around them? So this person has a lot of shame about relapsing in other programs and losing their abstinence in this one as well.
Thanks for the question. So relapse, I definitely had a lot of shame around my relapses, and I felt really like I failed, or that I'm gutted and worried. I don't want to show my face again, all of that. But there's no shame in a relapse. Food or fill in the blank for other substance is always going to be an option for a compulsive overeater, and it's always going to be the first option. It's like in your brain, like, I know, let me just pick up that food because that's going to give it the instant effect. I just need to pause because it takes God a little while to come in, and this is where the program of action comes in. I've just got to focus on the next right action bit by bit. And every time I've relapsed, I've had to work my recovery 10 times harder. I'm not saying that I don't do it normally, but I have to do more meetings. If I'm going to 2 meetings a week, I need to double it. If I'm reading one reading a day, I need to double it. And just outreach, and no one's judging you. We're all the same. We're all on the same boat of recovery. Just don't leave before the miracle happens. Keep coming back. Just keep getting back on the boat. It is possible, and God doesn't shame us because we've relapsed. And for me, I had to work the steps as quick as I could, and it took me about 4 months to get through the steps because I need to get a connection with my higher power. So the job of my sponsor is to put my hand in my hand of my higher power, and it's checking myself for the daily actions, making sure I'm doing my meetings and doing all the things I need to do, working all the tools that I need to do, and that's normally what starts slipping off. And then the food's always the last thing to go. Yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Okay, next question. Thank you so much, Mark, for your share. Can you talk more about how you developed your relationship to your higher power?
Sure. Through talking to it, like through talking to my higher power, and I did a lot of journaling, like to God letters. I've created a folder in my email account, and sometimes I'll just, if I don't feel like I don't want to write it down because I want to be a bit more secure, I feel a bit someone might see it, I'll just email myself but write it to God. And I've stopped trying to figure out what my God is, what my high power is. I just know that it is something bigger than me, and I love to free flow journal, just getting a pen and paper and just writing everything that comes out. And two-way prayer is really helpful as well. If you're not familiar with it, you just write a question, meditate for a couple of minutes, sit quiet, and then write whatever comes up, and you'll be surprised of the answers that come up. There's always room for improvement with connection with my higher power. But yeah, that's how I started, and what have you got to lose if I'm praying, God, please help me, and if I'm struggling, what have you got to lose? Just talking to thin air. Yeah, if you don't believe, like, what have you got to lose? It does come little by little, trickle in. Hopefully that's helpful, Dylan. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Mark. Some of these questions are overlapping, so I'm trying to kind of link some together. So apologies if I don't ask specific questions that you've sent me, because they kind of overlap. This person says, thank you, Mark, for your wonderful share. They're very touched about how you touched by the love and peace that you found with your mum. Is there anything more you wanted to share about kind of the change in the relationship through the steps? I know you mentioned some bits. Share more about that, and kind of how do you continue to deepen your connection to higher power today?
Sure.
Two in one.
That's cool. That's a good question. So there was a lot of hatred and bitterness towards my mum, and I blamed her for all of the problems in my life. And it was just about acceptance, and it took a lot of time to, a lot of work, a lot of step 10. She was the biggest step 4 I had. There was so much resentment towards her. It was just a lot of tolerance and patience and saying the resentment prayer. It's just in the back of the big rucksack for a couple of weeks. For months, I had to say it with some of the resentments from my mum, because I'm a stickler. I hung on to resentments for, oh my God, like 30 plus years about someone, that stole a last item at a Christmas dinner meal, and that was one item that I was like, I've held on to that for 30 years. I just hold on to anything because I'm just like a dog with a bone. I can't let go. Just a lot of prayer, a lot of meditation with my mum, and I did make an amends before my mum passed, and then I made another one to her afterwards. But praying with my higher power, taking the action and putting in boundaries. Boundaries was really important with me. Just saying, Mum, actually, I can meet up on a Wednesday, but I cannot be going every single day, and deepening my connection with my higher power, just sitting quiet with meditation, sometimes listening to spiritual music, like self-care for me, like having a really nice self-care day. Like I used to wear self-neglect like a badge of honor, but now having like a really nice exfoliation and a nice moisturizing session, calming music. It just feels good. Like when I feel good, like God wants me to look after and to nourish my body. And if it's good, if it's kind, if it's loving, if it's like, precious and serene, that's my God. If it's negative and critical, that's my disease, And sometimes it can sound like my good voice. I have to just check with myself or with my sponsor. Is this a good thought? Sometimes just message her being like, what do you think about this? And it's tough to it becomes second nature when you've been in program for a little while. It's like driving a car. It just becomes second nature. So it melds into normal life, doesn't it? So sometimes it's hard to pick it apart because it's just what we do. Like I'm just used to doing what we do. but it can feel a bit clunky, a bit hard at first, but it just becomes like driving a car. Like, you know, the penny just drops, or, you know, how you ride a bike. Yeah, it does work. And, you know, I can always deepen my spiritual connection. You know, I'm always going to work towards spiritual perfection, but I'll never get there because I'll never rise above the level of being a human being, you know. And if God was big enough for me to understand, he wouldn't be big enough to handle my problems. Yeah, and I just don't know what God is, but I know that God just wants the best for me, you know, and we're all God's children, you know, we're all equal. There's no comparison. And I didn't even ask me the Italian, sorry. There's no comparison on the ladder in recovery, you know, no one's better, no one's worse than. We're all on equal footing, you know, we're all God's children, we're all sick cookies trying to get well, you know. Yeah. Oh my God, I said cookies, sorry.
No worries. Thank you, Mark. Okay, next question. Thank you for your beautiful share. You mentioned about having issues with mobility. So how do you incorporate exercise or activity into your program?
Thank you. So it's funny, I had this conversation with a fellow today. So yeah, when I was at my biggest at 32 stone, I really struggled to get around, and, you know, it was just horrendous. And, you know, just being clean and sober from the binge food, you don't feel as rubbish. I don't feel as any as rubbish as I did before, and I just look after myself, got good sleep, and I do a lot of gardening, and you know, just do regular exercise. And when you start looking after and nourishing your body, you just feel better. Like, don't you? I feel like you just when you give your body what it needs, it feels good. And, you know, I'm still not as fit as I need to be. Like, I'm still working on that. You know, I was the weight of 3 people. I've lost 1 person. I've got 1 more to go, but I'll know my limitations. And, you know, there's a beautiful fellow that says to me, you know, that, like, I can become really perfectionistic. Perfectionism is one of my biggest defects, and I can create a massive to-do list, and I can be really hard on myself if I don't complete that to-do list. Like, why have I not done that? But actually, no. She says, I've got the pencil, God's got the ink, which is so powerful for me, because it's the truth. You know, it doesn't matter if I don't get all of this done on my to-do list today. Who's going to die, Mark? What's going to happen? It'll still be there tomorrow. You know, it's fine. I can't even remember the question, Ellen. I'm sorry. I can't even remember it. I'm like,
Exercise or movement?
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, just moving my body more, and just pushing myself a little bit further, you know, little and easy. You know, I'm not going to run a marathon tomorrow, but I do what I can. And yeah, losing the weight's definitely helped. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you.
Maybe next year, London Marathon. Anyway, moving on. I'll see you there. Not running on the sidelines. Anyway, sorry, back to the questions. Can you speak more about journaling? I find it very difficult. I feel that I'm writing a diary and it doesn't feel quite right.
Yeah, sure. I love to journal. Like, my sponsor doesn't love journaling, but, you know, I always start, hey, like, I'm writing to a best friend. It's like I just start, hey, and I just talk about my day, or review the day before, you know, what's gone well, what hasn't gone well. You know, and it is helpful. Like, you know, and for me, it just helps just get a pen and paper, no expectations, and just write what comes up, you know. And if I don't talk about it, I'll eat about it. So if I'm having a really tough problem, I'll work my way through it, and I normally will come out with an answer that I need. And if you don't love journaling and don't push yourself massively onto it, use the other tools more, you know. I mean, it is great. It's a great tool, but, you know, I love journaling. It just start little. It doesn't have to be 4, 5, 6 pages. You know, you could just start with a gratitude list, and, you know, just how your day's going, or whatever it may be. I don't journal as much as I used to. I mean, I journal every day, but the less resentful and pissed off I am, the less I have to journal about. So, I mean, I had like masses of books before, because I love talking about me. I'm an addict, shock horror. So all about me, writing everything down, blah, blah, blah. And then I opened my cupboard, and I've got like a book's massive pile. I said to my sponsor, what do I do with them? And she was like, you can burn them if you want. I said, that's a lot of work. And I was like, I'll just chuck them in the bin. So I did just chuck them in the bin, which is very wasteful, but I give them all to God. But yeah, you can just start small. You don't have to, you know, write essays and essays, and we've all got our different talents and stuff. But yeah, I love to journal. And if you don't love to journal, you know, make more outreach calls, you know, maybe just do a little bit. You don't put too much pressure on yourself. You know, most important thing is our connection with our higher power and working the steps, you know. And it's like, you know, if I can go to as many meetings as I like, you know, but if I don't go in and work the steps, you know, if I don't take the action and follow the instructions in the big book, I'm not going to get recovered. Just like if I go into a doctor's office, I've said this the wrong way around, but if I go into a doctor's office and I just sit in the waiting room and I don't go in and see the doctor and give them medication, I'm not going to get well. It's exactly the same thing, you know. So yes, it's great to go to meetings and stuff, and I need to, but I also need to, you know, the magic and the action happens in the big book. I can come to as many meetings as I want, but it ain't going to get me well. And actually, there was a gentleman. I never used to take AA as seriously as, you know, alcohol or drugs. And I know what my sharing. He's also was called Mark, and he, you know, I was like, oh, it's not that bad. My food's not as bad as, you know, as the alcohol or the drugs. And this guy was, you know, he was like really struggling for breath. He used to have like a ventilator in his throat, and was like, if you think, like, you know, gasping, if you think that this addiction's not as, you know, not as bad, like. Like, he's like, you're heavily mistaken. He's like, because, you know, I'm 600 pounds, I'm in a nursing home and I'm waiting to die. This disease has destroyed me. And that was the moment I sat and woke up and thought, fuck me, sorry, just want you know, this is going to kill me. It will. Like, there's no joke. It will. You know, yes, we can laugh and stuff, but it is a serious disease, you know. But there's no frothy emotional pill seldom suffices. You know, I can't make it all soft and fluffy, and it's tough. And I'm probably going to have to do what I don't want to do at times, you know. And there's many times I don't like what my sponsor tells me, but I just have to show up and take the action, and then my head will catch up eventually. And now I can look back and reverse and be like, oh, that's why you had to do that. Yeah, I get that. And it's just a journey of discovery, yeah. It's really helpful. Yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
It is. Right, we've got about 6 minutes left and we've got 2 questions, so we'll see what we can do. So, okay, next question.
Say, shut up, Mark, and then I'll be quiet.
It's all good. It's all good. I'm sure if you're happy to share your number in the chat at some point, people can always reach out to you directly. But we'll see if we can get these 2 in anyway. So thank you, Mark, for your share. For someone early in recovery, what is one thing you'd like them to know?
Oh, one thing. This program works, first of all. It works. You know, your disease is going to lie to you. Just one thing? Can I have more? It does work. Just keep coming back. No, I'm going to say this one thing into like one sentence. Is that all right? Yeah, just keep coming back. You know, it does work. Get to as many meetings as you can. Get a sponsor and work the steps. You know, that's the solution. Well, once you've been to 6 meetings, yeah. I'll put my number in the chat, and if you want to have a chat, you can. You can send me a voice note. We can, whatever. I'll talk to you. I do talk for a long time. You can tell me to shut up, but I'll be respectful, I promise. I will. But if you want to talk for 10 minutes, it's fine. I'll leave it there. End the sillies.
That's fine. Okay, and possibly last question. Thank you so much for an amazing share. How important is service in your life?
I love this question. That's a beautiful question. I used to be very scared. Tell me if I've got to stop, Helen, because I'll talk. I used to be really scared of service. I thought, oh no, it's not me. It's not. I don't want to do it. Oh, it's not. I'm not as good. I'm not good enough to do service. And it's important, you know. I started out doing service, doing regions at meetings, and I just got a beautiful fellow that I met, and we did the Sunday meeting together. And I was so scared to lead a meeting, and actually, it's not that scary. If you can read, you can lead, and it saves me, because if I didn't have a service position, sometimes I wouldn't go to the meeting. I wouldn't want to go. When you've got a service, you have to show up, and you know, I've got to give away so freely what was given to me, you know, and I've got a beautiful sponsee now. You know, sponsoring is really powerful. I used to think, oh, I can't do it. Excuse me, I'm not perfect. I don't look like Brad Pitt, like, you know, all of that. But actually, there's something so powerful about, you know, just working with another. You know, sponsoring is giving service. You know, being here is service. But you know, just reading. And I used to be so scared. What are they going to think of me? What happens if they say that? What if they say this? And this beautiful fellow who said to me once, Mark, most people are so wrapped up in their own stuff, they don't remember what you said in the meeting 5 minutes ago. And I was like, oh, really? He's like, Mark, he said, they don't care if you stumbled up the word abstinence and said banana or something. And I was like, oh my God, that's so true. I can't remember what someone said in the meeting yesterday. Like, I can't remember every single share. And I was like, and you know, I just need to give service, because if these people didn't give service, we wouldn't have a meeting to come to, you know, we wouldn't, there'd be nowhere else to go. And even today in the 21st century, with all the modern medicine, there's nothing else that works for us addicts apart from this program. You know, I mean, I think there's 119 different fellowships. I mean, it might have changed that since I looked that up, but you know, there wouldn't be 119 fellowships and billions of addicts recovered today if this program didn't work. You know, we wouldn't do it if it doesn't work, and it does. You know, and it does get easier. It does get, you know, and we just develop and grow more. But yeah, service is important, and if you're thinking about doing it, just do it. I mean, there's some meetings you can come and just do, you know, one service, just agree to do time one day, or you know, whatever. Just yeah, service is important for sure. You will be in here as service as well. You can always share at a meeting too. You know, no one's gonna judge you for what you say. Hopefully that's helpful, Ellen. Have I run over time? No, I'm all right. Okay.
That's perfect. That's amazing. Almost don't want that to end because there's some great questions. Obviously, Mark, great share. So I think I'll bring us to a close. The Q&A has come to a close. Thank you, Mark, again for being our guest speaker, for your service, your time and your energy. I'm sure it's touched so many, plus the recording will continue to touch many, many more. So thank you so much for sharing with us today. Okay, so the chat is open for you to share numbers for outreach. Obviously, please do. For those who would like to, please share your name and number in the chat. And if you are an available sponsor, please indicate this along with your details as well. So we've reposted our 7th Attrition link. Our meeting WhatsApp group link has been posted in there. It might be able to be posted again. And I've also posted the link to our YouTube channel, where this recording, once it's been edited, will be uploaded for you to enjoy at your leisure, again and again. So after this meeting, we've slightly changed. We do have a mini group conscience to discuss, talking about a service. It's a great segue to discuss the upcoming World Service Business Conference. And there's some proposals that they are planning to discuss, which could change, you know, some aspects of our program. So if you're nosy and want to know what's going on, or possibly, feel free to stay behind at the end of the meeting. So we'll close this meeting the same way we always close the New Freedom Big Book study by reading even the 12 promises of recovery as laid out in the Big Book, beginning at the bottom of page 83 with a paragraph, if we are painstaking, and ending, if we work for them. And Mark, it's in our usual style to ask our guest speaker to read that. Will be on the screen for you. So please go ahead when you see it on the screen.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody listening to me waffle on as well.
We've got the Big Book handy. I was just getting it.
No worries. Thanks. The promises. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we've gone, we will see how our experiences can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and economic insecurities will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realise that God is doing for us what we cannot do, what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialise if we work for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for sharing how they do indeed come true. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us today. Our meetings do recur on a weekly basis, and we'd love to see you again next Wednesday at the same time on the same link. May your high power bless you and keep you. Till then.